All right, so today we're going to talk about tax returns and tax return verifications. This is a super important topic this time of year. From January through April is tax season. So some people want to use tax returns, especially if you're a self-employed or you're a business owner and maybe you had not so great of a year in 2020. Maybe you had not so great of a year in 2018, okay? So we're at that period right now where you probably can still use your 19 and your 18 taxes if you want to, all right? Once we hit that April, May, every company might be a little bit different, but typically, and I'm generalizing a little bit, once we get to April, unless something happens with the government and they extend the filing for some reason for tax returns, if it's something beyond April 15th, like we had an extension last year, obviously because of COVID. This year, from what I know, there is no extension unless something changes between now and April 15th. So why am I talking about this? Two things. Tax returns, okay? If you provide tax returns to a lender, we have to get a tax return verification, all right? Why? Because we have to verify that the tax return that you gave us is the same tax return that you sent to the IRS. Yes, people do make up tax returns with the thought that somehow we're not going to verify that what they gave us is the same thing they gave to the IRS, okay? So I'm bringing this up because right now the IRS is behind, all right? Now, oftentimes you as the taxpayer, as the buyer, you can go to the website, the IRS website, and actually pull your tax return verifications yourself, normally. If you're trying to do a walk-in, right, where you can take your tax return and maybe you want to use your 2020 tax returns, right? But if you file it electronically, you may not get a tax return verification for weeks, if not longer. What you can do is get a stamped copy at the IRS. However, the IRS is so backed up right now, you can't just walk in right now from what I'm understanding. You can't just walk in. All right, this is coming from a client where you can't just walk in right now because they're so behind and there's COVID still. So be very, very careful right now. Okay, so again, we're at that point where you can still use 19 and 18 as far as your tax returns if you haven't filed for 2020, and most people probably haven't at this point. All right, this is the end of January. We're about to hit the first part of February. Once we hit February 1st, March, April, at some point, underwriters are no longer going to take your 18 tax return. Okay, so you need to keep that in mind if for some reason, you don't want to file 2020. Maybe you had a bad year. You want to use your 19 and 18. There's going to be a point in time where you can no longer use 18. All right, you're going to have to use 2020 and 2019. Now, there's businesses that sometimes we require 3 years no matter what, but for most people, 2 years is what we're going to be looking at. So that's either going to be 2020 taxes, 2019, or 2019 and 2018 for the moment. But again, there's going to hit a point where maybe around April 15th, where technically tax returns are due, where underwriters are not going to take your 18 tax returns anymore. So keep that in mind. If you are self-employed, again, self-employed people like to write a lot of things off. Perfectly fine. If it's legal, there's nothing wrong with writing things off, legitimate expenses. But just keep that in mind if you're looking to own a home, and keep in mind what you made in 2020. If you want to write off a ton of stuff, just keep that in mind. As a lender, we're going to use what you actually paid taxes on, all right? Not what you made. There's a big difference. So keep that in mind. The other thing is to keep in mind is, again, if you don't want to use your 2020, you didn't have a great year, you just want the lender to base your income off of 19 and 18, you got a window, all right? And again, I'm generalizing a little bit here, but April 15th is tax due date. Unless something changes, you can do an extension, that's fine. And then you might get a underwriter that still okays you using your 19 and 18. All right, if you get an extension for your 2020. So there's a lot of moving parts with this. If you have a question about this, please hit me up here. You can DM me. Check out texasmortgageboss.com. You can reach me there as well. But I wanted to share this with you because this is something that's going to become more and more prevalent as we hit February shortly here, and as we start to make our way to tax return due date, which is going to be April 15th unless something changes. So hopefully that makes sense. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but I just wanted to share that with you. So if you have any questions about it, let me know. All right, talk to you guys soon.